Hello and welcome to another week at Retropower. So let's have a little wander around and see where we're at. There's quite a lot been going on in assembly this week. Good progress on a number of projects. There's a little bit been happening on the W111 Kaiser 2. Carl's going to touch on that more next time because there's a few things we're waiting for. So we'll touch base on that one a bit more next time round. There's been a lot of progress on the Cortina. Trev's been working on that a lot. In fact, most people have been working on this at some point. Trev's just doing fuel lines at the moment and brake lines at the moment. All suspensions in, engines in now. We got the oil filter mount back from Alitech last time. That's now all together, assembled on the engine. Suspension's all in. There's a few revisions we're doing, a few alterations of various bits and bobs on the suspension just to get alignments a little bit better. The rear end is all done. It's all loosely in at the moment. It's on dummy coilovers at the moment while we wait for the final coilovers to be made. So it's just on some rigid bars to keep it propped up at the moment. And all the A-frames in and reasonably well aligned. Again, we'll do a final alignment on everything later. The spacers have all been made for the trailing arms, and the spacers have been, well, the A bracket's just shimmed for the alignment. It's basically equivalent to your panhard rod alignment on a car with a panhard rod. That's just the left-right alignment of the axle is done on the apex of the A bracket. That's roughly set. We've got wheel clearance where we need it. So we're happy with everything there. So this is all coming together quite well. Steering column, lower steering column's in now. Obviously the upper column and the heater were in last week. The lower column's in now. That's all clearing everything and working as it should. I need to get an oil filter. That's a minor little thing there. I need to get one of those. I'm currently welding up the dry sump tank and breather tank. That's been done to go in the front. We're putting a piggyback breather tank onto the dry sump tank. So just to keep all that tidy in the front end, keep it out of the way. The oil cooler lines have got to be made up. We've got all the fittings for those. They've got to be made up. That's one of the next tasks as well. Adam's been doing various sublooms. He's done the sublooms for the lighting. Bremax are making the main loom for the car, but Adam's been doing the various sublooms for the terminations, and he's currently doing sublooms for the Merc as well. That's the other little bit he's doing. Obviously, quickly touching on the Merc as we walk past it, the various chrome parts came back, and you can see there's been a visual change now. There'll be more visible next week, but there's been various bits of chrome fitted to that now, which have changed the look of the car quite a lot. And I think at that point we will probably wander next door. And if we have a wander that way, we'll have a walk through and into the noisy area. See what's been changing through there. As I mentioned through the other side, Cortina dry sump tank and breather tank. This is sort of loosely going together like that. When it's not got a stand stood in the middle of it, that will be going on there, mounted onto the brackets. This will bolt on with a pair of brackets that go. These brackets welded to the tank like that. Those brackets bolt onto it like that. Tank goes in between. It's hard to explain while it's all sat there on the bench, but that's how that's going. That's the actual breather outlet, which is being welded onto the top of the tank. There'll be a hose spigot from that goes to a hose spigot on that. That all bolts together, and all of that lot goes in the front of the car. The return oil from the engine goes into there. The feed oil to the engine goes in there. As you may know, with the Cosworth Duratec engines, all of the oil pumping is integral to the engine. The scavenge pump's integral inside the sump. There's a two-stage scavenge pump integral inside the sump, and there's the main pressure pump is a standard Duratec oil feed pump, which is also inside the engine as it would be on a normal Duratec. So the dry sump tank is literally just an oil reservoir that has oil fed from it and oil fed back to it via the cooler. It's a very, very simple arrangement, very nice for a road car with a dry sump. It's a really nice setup, but we've just got to make various alterations to the way the dry sump tank works and how it fits in the front of the car. Well, we've got to make the tank basically, but we've got to make various additions to it to make it work in the front of the car. Onto the Morris. If I sneak round this way, because Scott's been making good progress this week in the back of the car. He's shaped these sections up for finishing the rear chassis to inner wheel arch area. His next stage, there's various bits of alteration we've got to do in here, but he's shaped all the tube in the back. He finished off the gussets in the back of here. He's made the inner wheel arch sections here. And that's all nice and tidy now. We've got to finish the panel work in here, but we've got to decide, there's various other jobs we've got to do before we can do that. We've got to work out the fuel tank structure, how that's going in, how we're mounting it. I've got to add some reinforcement to the rear turrets, which I haven't designed yet. I've got to draw that up yet. And we've got to work out what we're doing in terms of the structure down here. There's various things we might want to incorporate, you know, exhaust clearances, things like that. So that's not been designed yet. That's still got to be done. So we've got the seat sat on a box, same box we had it on before, high-tech height adjustment equipment. The seat sat in the right place loosely. I'm going to verify that in a bit. And then with that sat there, we can work out exactly the height, the relative heights of the floor and the bits the seat's got to mount onto, which we've got to make. With that done, then Scott can make those, and the other rail. Basically, the seat sits on two rails. One of them is going to be a significant reinforcer that also supports the floor. The other one is just going to be a seat mount. So we can make those as soon as we've just finalised the exact seating position. We can make those two rails, and that then enables us to start on working on the floors. So that's the next steps on that. The pedals are back in again just to help us verify the exact position there. And then moving along to the front, there's just been a couple of little finishing off jobs. Scott's the bulkhead that was pressed last time is now in, and the tube work on the front, the final tube of the front end is now in with these removable joints so that we can lift that out. That'll basically hold the cooler pack. There's going to be a removable fabricated slam panel that comes across here, which is going to mount the top of the radiator, and then the bottom of the cooler pack, the fan, the oil cooler and the radiator will all mount onto this tube, and it'll enable you to drop the bolts out of there. It'll sit with its weight on there. You can take the bolts out of the slam panel, and the whole front will be able to detach for easy access into the rest of the engine bay. So that was the plan there anyway. Hopefully that should all still work out, but it was just proved a nice way of making the front end detachable. So that's where we're at with the Morris, and more progress next week on that one. Moving on, we'll move on to the Mustang area, where things have been fairly scary most of the week. Stu's currently epoxying the inside of the chassis rails with an epoxy primer, so all the inaccessible bits are nicely coated. Stu's been busy. You saw one side of a C-pillar repair section that he'd made last week, that Cal showed last week. He's carried on, he's done the other side of that now as well, plus made the second part of the C-pillar repair, this piece here, which he's just got bolted on at the moment. He's made both of those as well. He's had all the rear end mocked up. If he had more hair, he'd have pulled it all out, because he's been battling extremely inaccurate jig dimensions. There seems to be total inconclusion on what the correct dimensions are for the underbody of a Mustang, and he's just been battling that. He's finally got to a reasonable average set of dimensions based on all of the available data, and then aligning the car to double check those dimensions with all the back end mocked up and built up. He's concluded that they are correct. So it's now all apart again so that he can get everything coated before he starts to weld all the rear end together. But as you can see, the boot floor assembly is there. That's got to sit on top of the rails once they're done. The quarter panels have been offered up and loosely assembled to the inner arches to check everything lines up there, and to check that we can get good door gaps to the wing, good door gap to the quarter, good quarter fit to the rear panel, and the same all the other side. It's at that stage where everything has to be built up and unbuilt and built up and unbuilt repeatedly, and it's quite time consuming. But I think Stu's now at the stage where he's reasonably happy. I'm getting a nod. So Stu's pretty happy now. It's been a battle, but he's getting close now. So next week you should see some pretty dramatic sort of steps forward on this as the various areas come together. Certainly very good progress again on the Mustang front, considering the difficulties with lack of accurate dimensional data. It's really pleased with progress on that, so good work. And moving on, we're into the body shop where Utah is being worked on. Gary's at the front end. He's hiding in there, doing some lead work at the minute. There was a couple of areas where we missed a bit of lead work, so he's doing that at the moment, and he's doing the initial filler work. He's had an initial go over the roof just to see what that was like. He's pretty happy with that, I believe. There's a lot of work to do on the back and the front. We knew that was going to be the case. It always was. He's done the seam sealing. I believe all of it, but certainly most of it, if not all of it. But the front end, he's doing a grille mock-up, and we will be doing lights mock-up and various other tasks on the front to just make sure everything fits. And at the moment, there's some lead work needed around the grille area, which Gaz is working on at the moment. And that's really where we're at on that. It's probably a bit awkward, probably a bit cramped to walk into to catch Gary. No, we might be able to catch him. Yeah, there we go. We can fit in. it's a bit tight in here, but yeah, Gaz is just currently doing a bit of lead around the bottom of the grill area where the things weren't just quite right. We thought we got it right. We were slightly off, so he's making some adjustments there. But it's coming together quite well now. It's a complex shape to work with, but he's getting on top of it a bit now. There we go. That's the principle of what's going on, is trying to make sure that we've got a decent fit of the grille to the body without needing to put excessive amounts of filler into things. Although obviously there is a reasonable amount of filler going to be used in the car. We try not to have excessive amounts in any one area, and that was an area where the shape wasn't quite right initially, so we're making some revisions there. I think that's probably about where we're at this week.